Welcome back to CCNA 3. We're talking about section 3.5, some different common network attacks. And so malware can use different ways to compromise our network. And we're going to try to understand these different ways and categorize them in a way that we can understand and communicate about these with other professionals in our industry. So there's really three types of attacks: reconnaissance attacks, access attacks, and denial of service attacks. And we're going to talk about each one of those and what those mean in this section. Then we're going to talk about how to mitigate some of these attacks. So reconnaissance is really just information gathering. This can be done in a variety of ways. A lot of times today it's done via social media. So this is a tactic that we've used in military for forever, having some reconnaissance, trying to figure out, get some information before we actually attack. Now, whether that's in a military situation or in a cyber situation, having information about about someone you're trying to attack is very, very valuable. So as an organization, we want to make sure that we are keeping as much as we can out of the public eye, out of the public view, off of social media and stuff like that, to kind of prevent some of this reconnaissance. So a lot of stuff can be found on a Google search on who is, right? Who registers the domain, what their address is, who works there. Like, so they look at LinkedIn profiles and say, hey, this guy has a lot of experience with Cisco gear. I'm going to wage that they're using Cisco gear there because he has a Cisco certification. He lists experience with Cisco gear. Maybe he actually lists model numbers. That's very, very valuable information. You don't want to ever list model numbers on your resume or on your LinkedIn profile, especially if you're within an interview with another company and they want to know some specific models you've worked on. You might be able to have that conversation, but keep in mind you never want to specifically single out an organization. You may have had 3 different positions, say, hey, I've worked on ASAs, I've worked on Palo Altos, I've worked on whatever. Try to be generic and not give someone an opportunity if there is malicious intent. So also they can do things like ping sweeps and check out, okay, well, how is our network structured? Do we have a very logical network diagram? Maybe they'll come across a network diagram when they're searching for things. That's also very valuable information. So we want to make sure that stuff like ping sweeps aren't going to get all of our network, especially parts of our network that are very valuable. We don't want those to easily be found. So the less they know, the more difficult it is for them to attack us. So port scans can be very, very valuable information. Usually we want to block these kind of things. And some firewalls will actually just reply on all ports, say, oh yeah, all my ports are open, and all my IP addresses respond to pings. Or other firewalls may block all pings. We block pings in many different places. We only allow certain protocols, certain ports to be open. We're very, very specific about what's open and what's not in our network. Whether that's coming from an internal source or an external source, we're very, very conservative on on what we allow. So vulnerability scanners internally is very, very important. We want to run our own vulnerability scanners because our adversaries are the people we're worried about, those threat actors. They're going to be running stuff like Nessus against us, and so we want to make sure that we have as much patched, as much mitigated before they actually come in here. Because if they run a Nessus scan and we haven't run a Nessus scan in a year, well, all the vulnerabilities from the last year we may be completely ignorant of. So we want to do that constantly, all the time. Doing that monthly, bi-weekly, quarterly, however your organization does it, we want to do it regularly. And then exploitation tools. Once they actually have the information, then they're going to actually run exploits against the things they found. So if they found vulnerabilities with Nessus, if they found vulnerabilities with Nmap, they're able to fingerprint our devices, they're able to scan our network. Now they can actually run the tools that will actually compromise our hosts. Also, access attacks. So if they want to gain access to our network, they may try to go through something like FTP and put a worm on our FTP server or a host that's running FTP. there's a lot of different ways they can try to gain access to our network. Now, a lot of, especially when you're talking about nation state actors, they're going to start off with a reconnaissance attack. A lot of times a very passive one. They're going to do some Google searches, they're going to look up stuff on the internet, they're going to look up people who worked there in the past and currently, and they're going to piece together information without actually going into our network, without actually ping sweeping anything, without any knowledge of the organization, right? LinkedIn's not going to say, hey, we had somebody that went and looked up all of your people that work there. So it's very, very important to keep as little on social media as possible. You don't want your employees taking pictures of network closets. You don't want your employees posting model numbers of what they're working on. There's a lot of things you have to really be cautious about that people are posting on the internet. And a lot of people are very casual with what they post on the internet. And they don't realize how dangerous some of that could be. I've seen people post their home address on Facebook. I've seen people post their picture of their car with their license plate on Facebook. I'm just like, my jaw is dropped. Like, I can't believe people would do that. It's very, very scary. And then the next week they post they're on vacation in Cancun. They won't be back for 3 weeks. You know, they're like, oh, I'm on my 3-week vacation in Cancun. It's like, well, you just posted your freaking address online, and now you're saying you're in Cancun for 3 weeks. So that's a perfect opportunity. If someone's on your Facebook page that's malicious, a lot of times Facebook pages are public, and so they say, oh, well, here's their address. They're on vacation, so it's a perfect time to break into their house. Or I've seen tons of people in IT post pictures of a cool networking closet. Well, now I know what kind of firewall you run. Now I know what kind of switches you run. So now there's a lot of information in that photo that you just thought looked cool. And I believe those people aren't trying to be malicious that are posting that on social media. They're just being ignorant to the fact that it's a security issue. And a lot of that, I actually had a situation where I was in an interview, and I was like, I was kind of concerned about how they kept up physically their networking closets and stuff. And I was like, can I take a look at what your environment looks like, because I don't want to go into an environment where it's the spaghetti, the flying spaghetti monsters in your networking closet. And they're like, well, we'll have to have you sign an NDA. You're not allowed to say anything that you see. I absolutely agree with that. That makes a ton of sense. We don't want people just going out and posting pictures or telling everyone, hey, they run this manufacturer, they run this model. We don't want that information out there. And usually the end goal is going to be to retrieve data to gain access or to get privileges on our network. They can also try to get the passwords of users by guessing passwords, social engineering, stuff like that. A lot of different ways they can get passwords. Spoofing attacks. So the actor will try to pose as another device. Maybe they'll walk up with a device or a laptop or something and plug into your network. Try to do some DHCP spoofing or MAC spoofing, IP spoofing. These are all things that we'll learn how to mitigate in the next section. I think it's the next section. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the next session. We're going to talk about mitigating some of these vulnerabilities here. You may also have trust exploitation. So I'll call somebody and say, oh yeah, hey, I work with who's it's over in IT. I found Bob's name on LinkedIn. Bob Marley works at this company in IT, and so I call up and say, hey, yeah, I'm with IT. Yeah, I work with Bob Marley, and we're over here. We're trying to get this information. What kind of printer do you have over there? We're trying to work on this printer. Well, now you know what kind of printer they have, and maybe that information will be useful. Port redirections. So if we take some traffic to and reroute it to our host, or maybe we do what's called firewalking. So we can go through a firewall by going through the wrong port in the firewall and then changing to the port that we need to get to later. This is a very real threat and a very scary threat. Man-in-the-middle attacks. So, a lot of these man-in-the-middle attacks are wireless because it's very easy to set up a hotspot, call it the same thing, steal your credentials, and then pass them on to the next guy, to the actual network. And so you as a user, you don't know, you just connected and bam, everything's good. You're on the network, you have everything you expect, but what you don't know is they just stole your credentials. And also you have stuff like buffer overflow attacks. Very common when you're talking about maybe a SQL injection type attack where they're going to overflow a table or your memory to try to overwrite other data that they shouldn't be able to have access to. Social engineering is probably one of the most important things to prevent. So user training is number one. The most effective thing you can do at any organization is to have phishing training and social engineering training. We want to make sure people aren't shoulder surfing. So people aren't looking over someone's shoulder and trying to steal their passwords or other information. Maybe you have critical information you're working with, engineering documents you're looking at. Well, if you just have an open door to the public and somebody walks behind you and looks at your engineering document, well, maybe they could potentially get information from that that'll help your competitor. Dumpster diving. So it's important to shred all of your stuff. If there's any kind of valuable data on it, shred it. Whether that's hard disks, whether that's physical paper, you want to use a shredder. Very, very important, especially when you're talking about valuable data. Oh, wrong button. So you may have stuff where they're trying to pretend to need personal information to confirm the identity of someone. It's called pretexting. So they'll call them up. Hey, we're Wells Fargo Bank, and we just need to verify what's the last four of your social. Is this Bob Marley? We just need to verify the last four of your social so that we can tell you some really important news about your bank account. That could be something. It could be phishing. It could be a fraudulent email, or they don't have phishing in here, but voice phishing, where they actually pick up the phone and call somebody. Hey, I'm with IT support. I work with Bob Marley over here, and we just need to remote into your computer. Can you go to this website and download this thing so we can remote in? Or maybe they're just trying to get some information. Maybe they're calling and saying, hey, I'm with IT. I'm just trying to get what kind of printer you have so that we can do some inventory on it. We're trying to update our inventory or something like that. You also have spear phishing, which is a specific phishing attack geared toward a specific user or group. So maybe you'll have a spear phishing that'll go after a political person, maybe a top executive, CEO. Very, very common to get those kinds of things geared towards those high value targets. And then just spam, junk mail, there's all kinds of stuff that comes in that we don't want, that could potentially be malicious or deceptive. So we also have a quid pro quo problem where someone is going to try to basically bribe someone. So maybe they're like, hey, I'll send you a $20 iTunes gift card. All you have to do is tell me a little bit about your network and what kind of switches you run. And that could be a very, very valuable information. And we want to make sure that our employees know that's not something that we give away. That's not something that we tell people. If they start asking weird questions and offering free gifts for us for answering this quick survey about how our IT posture is, or what equipment we use, or what desktops we use, or something like that, that can be very, very bad. There's also baiting. A very common thing is for a flash drive to be left in a parking lot. And someone goes, oh, hey, a free flash drive. This one looks nice. I'm going to go plug it in, clear it out. And before they know it, they insert it into their computer. It runs an auto run script or something similar. This is how Stuxnet got started. And then their computer is infected from that USB drive. A lot of times the user doesn't even know it happened. Impersonation. So just like I was saying, someone could call and say, hey, I'm from IT. I work for Bob Marley. I saw him on LinkedIn that works there, so I'm just going to pretend. Or maybe it's a large enough organization where I'm going to just pretend to be Bob Marley. I'm just using this name as an example. And also tailgating. That's when someone kind of tries to follow someone into an authorized area, a secure area. and that's very common as well. We want to make sure that our people are going to start asking questions and going, hey, who are you? Who do you work with? And really getting to the bottom of that when someone's trying to sneak in when they don't have a badge or a code or whatever they need to access a particular area. So the social engineering toolkit was designed to help white hat hackers and security professionals to kind of mitigate some of these issues, right? So we want our users to know this stuff, not just IT people. We want to educate our users to never give their credentials to anyone, not even IT. If IT calls you and says, hey, we need your password real quick, no, don't give them your password. Don't ever ask as an IT person for anyone's password. Make sure they know we will never ask for your password. If someone asks for your password, hang up. Never leave your credentials on a sticky note under your keyboard. One day we will fix this. Or your phone, your desk phone. Very, very popular. Stupid. Very, very stupid. Never open email attachments from untrusted sources. If you have emails from someone you don't know, forward it to IT. Include an attachment with the original email on it so we can look at it. Never release work information on social media sites. Very, very important, right? So maybe, yes, to a certain extent, on LinkedIn you need to post, hey, I'm a security professional. I do security stuff. I've worked with security programs that maybe something like ran vulnerability scanners, managed firewalls. Be generic to where, yes, this is what I did, but don't start naming off vendors. Don't start naming off product specific exactly. Specifically, that's very, very bad practice. We want to make sure that we don't share that information with potentially a malicious person. Never reuse work-related passwords. Just don't. Just don't. That's a huge problem. Haven't been pwned. Yeah, check that out if you don't know what that is. You'll probably find one or two accounts of yours that have been compromised. Always lock or sign out of your computer when unattended. This is also a huge problem. I can't believe that we have people that are dealing with extremely sensitive information that just, it's so inconvenient to lock my computer when I step away for 5 minutes to go get a drink from the break room. Like, I'm sorry, it's inconvenient, but what if someone walks up to your desk and sends an email to your boss that says that, something nasty? I lock my computer every time I walk away from it. And I never save passwords on my computer either, but apparently that's not in their list of things. Thanks, Cisco. We want to always report suspicious individuals. Hey, hold on, you work with who? You work with Bob Marley? Let me give him a call over here. Hey, is there a new guy on your team? No? Okay, well, there's somebody over here, and he's looking kind of suspicious, so can you come over here? Or maybe you need to call security. Always destroy confidential information if you don't need it. So if we're done with information, it's confidential, it's important, but we don't need to keep it, then let's destroy it. Let's use a shredder or something like that. So we really need to educate our users and make sure they know not to do these things. Denial of service is not always malicious. It may be a broken device or a congested link. Things do happen, but sometimes they can be malicious. So, like I mentioned before, it's like if you have a bus that buses people to the downtown area from your local suburb or whatever, and someone pays a bunch of people $10 to get on that bus one morning. Well, now you can't get to work because the bus has no seats for you, and so a legitimate user is impacted by someone manipulating the system. And it may be a broken system. It may be something's wrong. It may be, out here in the Houston area, it's rodeo day. And so, everything is congested just because of that. And you can't get to work because of that or something like that. But sometimes it can be malicious. A distributed denial of service attack is similar, but it has several different sources, usually a botnet or something like that. There are two main types of attacks. So you could overwhelm the quantity or maliciously form your packets. So overwhelming, that's kind of like the bus example. Maliciously formed packets may create some application issues. So someone unplugging the cable just for giggles counts. Maliciously formed packets can create application crashes. And so there may be a situation where I can form a packet a certain way that will crash SQL. So if I do that and it crashes SQL, well, maybe SQL reboots, right? The process will restart after it crashes. But if I just keep sending that maliciously formed packet, it'll just keep crashing and keep crashing and keep crashing. And we can perform denial of services that way. And that's all for section 3.5. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon for section 3.6.